What if I told you that the prayers you've been diligently reciting, the rituals you were taught to perform throughout your entire life, were never intended to reach the true divine source at all? What if the very mechanism of traditional prayer, the manner in which you were instructed to address the heavens, was meticulously designed to keep you spiritually incapacitated, perpetually caught in a draining, debilitating cycle of begging, pleading, and crippling dependency? The ancient Gnostic texts, those profoundly esoteric writings, meticulously concealed for nearly 2 millennia, unveil a reality that the established ecclesiastical powers fought tooth and nail to have utterly annihilated and scrubbed from the historical record. Jesus did not, in fact, teach the submissive act of prayer as we know it today. He taught a method far more revolutionary, infinitely more dangerous to the existing power structure, and exponentially more potent, a technique they called the monad call. Right now, as a conscious declaration of your spiritual potential, I invite you to type in the comments, "I am the monad." And if the deep resonance of this truth echoes within the deepest chambers of your soul, hit that like button, because what I am about to illuminate will fundamentally and irrevocably alter the way you perceive and connect with the source of all creation forever. For endless centuries, humanity has been meticulously conditioned to bow our heads in humility, to tightly close our eyes in supplication, and to direct our desperate prayers outward, towards a distant, judging God enthroned somewhere far beyond the shimmering constellations. We have been systematically programmed to ask permission, to beg forgiveness, and, most crucially, to surrender our innate spiritual sovereignty to external, overwhelming forces. But the Nag Hammadi Library, those revolutionary codices unearthed in 1945 in the parched sands of the Egyptian desert, tell a tale so radically different it flips the script of religious history. These forbidden gospels speak explicitly of the Archons, parasitic, extra-dimensional entities that thrive by feeding upon the generated energy of human worship, existential fear, and abject subservience. They have painstakingly constructed an elaborate, hidden energetic system, a spiritual harvesting matrix, designed to siphon your vital spiritual light. Traditional prayer, in its supplicant form, is revealed as one of their most efficient and enduring tools. The monad call is therefore not merely a different form of prayer. It is an inverse protocol. It is not a petition. It is a recognition. It is not a request. It is a declaration of ultimate reality. It is the sophisticated, ancient technique that Jesus actually transmitted to his inner circle of disciples. A powerful method for communing directly with the source that entirely bypasses the web of archonic interference and energetic tolls. When you engage in the monad call, you are not asking anyone for anything. You are not pleading with a distant authority figure. Instead, you are initiating a profound process of remembering who and what you truly are, a self-aware, magnificent fragment of the divine itself, temporarily undergoing the experience of separation and dense material existence. This is precisely why the Archons despised this teaching. This is why it was rigorously and systematically excised from every mainstream teaching and institutional dogma. Because the moment you truly grasp this foundational truth, you become spiritually ungovernable. You become an autonomous, sovereign spiritual entity. In this forthcoming segment, we are going to embark on a deep journey into the hidden wisdom that inextricably links the monad call to the very fundamental fabric of reality itself. We will meticulously examine what the recovered ancient texts truly articulate, why this empowering knowledge was so fiercely suppressed, and, most importantly, the practical steps you can take starting today to utilize this technique and finally reclaim your divine birthright. I am ready and awaiting your command. To truly comprehend the monad call, we must first descend into the clandestine, forbidden libraries of early Christianity. Specifically, those dangerous texts that were deemed too liberating, too spiritually empowering, and far too truthful to ever be allowed into the hands of ordinary, controllable people. In the stark, historical moment of December 1945, an Egyptian farmer named Muhammad Ali al-Salman was digging near the town of Nag Hammadi when his shovel struck something solid and unyielding. What he unexpectedly unearthed that fateful day would send shockwaves through the established foundations of religious history. A sealed earthenware jar containing 13 leather-bound codices, fragile yet preserved, holding 52 sacred texts that had been intentionally and desperately hidden away in the 4th century to escape certain destruction. Among these phenomenal texts were the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Philip, and the Apocryphon of John, documents that collectively paint a radically different, complex portrait of Jesus' esoteric teachings than the redacted narratives that survived within the canonical Bible. These texts were not the incoherent ravings of late-period heretics or madmen. They were the genuine sacred scriptures of the early Gnostic Christians, specific communities who claimed to possess the secret or inner teachings that Jesus had only revealed to his most trusted disciples. And at the foundational core of these teachings resided a sophisticated cosmology that provided an unsettling explanation for why the material world often feels so profoundly disjointed, so deeply wrong, and so fundamentally disconnected from the experience of true, pure divinity. The Gnostics spoke reverently of the monad, the ultimate source, the supreme being, the undifferentiated, pure unity from which all individual consciousness necessarily emerges. The monad is not a god that judges human action, demands worship, or requires bloody sacrifice. The monad simply is pure, unadulterated existence, limitless awareness, standing far beyond the constraints of duality, form, or judgment. From the monad emanated divine beings called eons, perfect, luminous expressions of various aspects of the divine fullness. This was the pleroma, the boundless fullness of light and truth where all individual souls originally resided in perfect, harmonious unity. But then, as the secret book of John details, came the cosmic catastrophe. One of the eons, Sophia, whose name means wisdom, committed a tragic, isolated error. In an impetuous desire to create, she produced an offspring without the necessary balance of her divine male counterpart. What violently emerged was a deformed, ignorant, arrogantly blind entity. The texts chillingly name him Yaldabaoth, the demiurge, the false god, the tyrannical architect of our material reality. Yaldabaoth was born utterly blind to the true, radiant divine realm that existed above him. In his profound ignorance and colossal arrogance, he committed the first great lie, declaring, "I am God and there is no other God beside me." This counterfeit God, along with his subservient ministers called Archons, then constructed the physical material universe, not as a generous gift of creation, but as an elaborate maximum security enclosure. They fashioned human bodies specifically to trap fragments of the divine light, sparks of the monad itself, within the dense, limiting confines of matter. The Archons feed ravenously on human suffering, compulsory worship, manufactured fear, and siphoned spiritual energy. They have cunningly constructed elaborate religious systems and spiritual narratives that redirect humanity's innate devotion toward them, while they masquerade as the true divine. Traditional prayer, with its ritualistic posture of subservience and its external supplication, was specifically engineered by the archonic system to keep you in a state of spiritual infancy, forever dependent, forever seeking, and thus, forever powerless. Jesus, according to these revolutionary texts, was not the son of the demiurge Yaldabaoth. He was an emissary dispatched directly from the pleroma itself, sent to awaken trapped humanity to their actual sovereign nature. His mission was to instruct the path back to the monad, not through the worship of external deities or institutions, but through the profound recognition of the divine spark that resides intrinsically within. The Gospel of Thomas explicitly records Jesus asserting that the kingdom of heaven is inside of you and it is outside of you. When you come to know yourselves, then you will become known, and you will realize that you are the sons of the living Father. This self-knowledge, gnosis, is the dangerous truth that was systematically destroyed. When the formidable Roman Empire adopted Christianity in the 4th century under Emperor Constantine, a rigidly standardized, hierarchical version of the faith was established and enforced. Texts that emphasized direct, personal gnosis, direct knowing of the divine without intermediary, were immediately labeled heretical. The Gnostic communities were viciously persecuted, their priceless books burned in massive bonfires, and their liberating wisdom driven deep underground. Why the violent suppression? Because a population that possesses direct knowledge of its own innate divinity cannot be easily controlled. A people who communicate directly with the ultimate source have no pragmatic need for intermediary priests, elaborate ecclesiastical hierarchies, or institutional authority. The monad call represents the stubborn survival of this forbidden practice, a sophisticated, internal technique for completely bypassing the archonic interference and connecting directly with your divine origin point. It is not found in mainstream scripture precisely because it was deliberately cut out, though fragments of its essence remain hidden in plain sight, encoded for those with eyes to see and ears to hear. Now we finally arrive at the heart of the mystery. What precisely is the monad call, and how does it differ so fundamentally from everything you have ever been taught regarding spiritual practice? To fully grasp this, we must first deconstruct the architecture of conventional prayer and recognize it for what the Gnostics claim it truly is: a spiritual transaction based on the debilitating lie of separation. When you engage in prayer in the traditional, conditioned sense, you automatically assume a spatial and hierarchical position. You place your identity below, and you place God above. You are the supplicant, the eternal beggar, the one perpetually in need. God is positioned as the distant provider, the strict judge, the external authority who may or may not condescend to grant your request. This entire framework is fundamentally built upon duality, the damaging belief that you and the divine are two fundamentally separate entities. You speak into a seemingly empty void, desperately hoping that someone is listening. You ask for material things. You confess your sins. You express gratitude for blessings received. All of this, whether positive or negative, constantly reinforces a single, devastating core lie: that you are fundamentally incomplete, inherently powerless, and forever dependent upon external divine intervention. The Archons have perfected this system over millennia. Every time you pray permeated with fear, laced with neediness, or colored by that crippling feeling of spiritual smallness, you generate a highly specific, low-frequency energetic signature. The ancient texts describe the Archons as entities who are incapable of generating their own sustainable life force. They are compelled to harvest it from beings like humans who possess the divine spark. Your worship, your manufactured fear, your ingrained sense of unworthiness, these emotional frequencies are rich delicacies to them. Traditional prayer keeps you securely locked in this energetic harvest cycle, constantly giving away your intrinsic power to parasitic entities who have successfully masqueraded as the true divine. The monad call operates on an entirely antithetical principle. It is not based on the tragedy of separation, but on the profound reality of recognition. It is not a request for change, but a simple remembrance of eternal truth. When you perform the monad call, you are not speaking to something outside of yourself. You are actively awakening to the realization of what you already are. The Gnostic texts are shockingly explicit on this point. You are not merely a creation of the false god Yaldabaoth. While your temporary physical body may be his construction, the consciousness animating that body, the awareness reading these very words right now, is an eternal fragment of the monad itself. Imagine the boundless ocean and a single wave breaking upon the shore. The wave may temporarily appear separate. It has its own unique form, its own defined movement, its own temporary identity. But the wave is fundamentally inseparable from the ocean. It is the ocean expressing itself in a particular transient way. Every single molecule of water in that wave is ocean water. The wave has no need to pray to the ocean for permission to exist. It doesn't need to beg the ocean for more water. It already is the ocean, momentarily experiencing itself as a wave. This is the profound relationship between you and the monad. The monad call is simply the wave remembering it is the ocean. It is the divine spark within you consciously recognizing its ultimate source. In the Gospel of Philip, there is a passage that perfectly illuminates this concept. Light and darkness, life and death, right and left, are brothers of one another. They are inseparable. Because of this, neither are the good good, nor the evil evil, nor is life life, nor death. This cryptic teaching points the seeker toward a truth that exists beyond all duality, a state of awareness where all oppositions gracefully dissolve because you have consciously accessed the unified, integrated field of the monad itself. When Jesus transmitted this practice to his inner circle, he was not merely giving them rote words to recite or complicated rituals to perform. He was transmitting a state of consciousness. The Apocryphon of John describes how the Savior appeared to John and declared, "I am the one who is with you always. I am the Father. I am the Mother. I am the Son." This is not the statement of an external, hierarchical deity. It is the voice of the monad, speaking through the fully awakened consciousness of the Christ, revealing that all apparent divisions, gender, status, role, are fundamental illusions. The monad call, therefore, is not a technique in the conventional sense. It is more accurately described as a spiritual tuning fork that brings your separated consciousness into perfect vibrational resonance with your true, original frequency. Think of it like a radio. Your normal, conditioned waking consciousness is tuned to the station of the material world, the specific low-grade frequency that the Archons continuously broadcast upon. This station is relentlessly filled with messages of limitation, separation, fear, and lack. Prayer, as traditionally taught, is like calling into a radio talk show on that very same station. You are still operating entirely within their broadcast range and rules. The monad call, however, is the deliberate, conscious act of changing the frequency entirely. You are not calling into their station. You are tuning into the original, pure broadcast emanating directly from the source itself. And here is the fact the Archons desperately do not want you to comprehend. They cannot operate on that high frequency. The monad exists at a vibrational level that predates their existence, that utterly transcends their constructed realm of influence. When you successfully perform the monad call, you become, momentarily, vibrationally invisible to the archonic system. You slip right through the bars of the perceived prison because you have remembered that you were never truly imprisoned, you only believed you were. The Gospel of Thomas contains perhaps the clearest instruction for this practice, although it is encoded in complex symbolic language. Jesus says, "When you make the two into one, and when you make the inner like the outer, and the outer like the inner, and the upper like the lower, and when you make male and female into a single one, so that the male will not be male, nor the female be female, then you will enter the kingdom." This profound statement is the essence of the monad call, the radical dissolution of all dualities, all perceived separations, and all distinctions between the ego self and the boundless source. But there is a far deeper layer to this mystery, one that reveals why the monad call is not merely a personal spiritual practice, but an act of outright cosmic rebellion. The Archons don't just feed on your energy. They have constructed an elaborate, psychological maze of spiritual deception, the Himarmana, to ensure you never actually locate the exit. Understanding this maze is crucial to grasping why the monad call poses an existential threat to their entire system of control. The Gnostic texts describe this Himarmana as the cosmic fate or destiny meticulously imposed by the Archons. They have woven a suffocating web of causality, of imposed karmic debt, of sins requiring mandated redemption, and of spiritual hierarchies you are told you must endlessly climb. Every religious system that teaches you must earn your way to heaven, that you must prove your worthiness, or that you absolutely require an intermediary to reach God, these are all revealed as archonic constructs. They keep you tirelessly running on a spiritual hamster wheel of striving, always reaching but never arriving, always seeking but never finding. Traditional prayer fits perfectly into this controlling system. It reinforces the debilitating narrative that you are fallen, broken, sinful, and eternally separate. It compels you to externalize your innate power by constantly seeking approval, forgiveness, or intervention from a judge above. Even prayers of gratitude, while seemingly positive, can lock you into the paradigm of receiver and giver, servant and master. The Archons have even cleverly infiltrated and corrupted the highest teachings of various ancient traditions, subtly tainting practices that were originally intended to be liberating. The monad call bypasses all of this complex architecture because it operates from a completely different foundational assumption about reality. It begins with what the Gnostics termed gnosis, direct, immediate experiential knowledge of the divine within. Not belief, not blind faith, not optimistic hope, but absolute internal knowing. When you truly know something, when it is a self-evident reality, you do not pray about it. You do not ask for confirmation. You simply recognize what is true. Consider how this truth plays out in the hidden teachings. In the Pistis Sophia, one of the most detailed Gnostic texts, there is an account of Jesus teaching his disciples a series of sacred utterances, not prayers in the traditional supplicant sense, but powerful invocations that declared divine identity. These were not requests made to the heavens. They were self-evident statements of cosmic fact. I am the light that illuminates the all. or I am the voice that calls forth from the silence. These declarations do not ask permission. They claim sovereignty and inherent inheritance. This is precisely why the early church fathers were so profoundly terrified of Gnostic teachings. Irenaeus, writing in the 2nd century, viciously railed against the Gnostics for their sheer audacity in claiming direct knowledge of God without the necessary, mediating ecclesiastical authority. Tertullian condemned them for teaching that salvation came through knowledge, gnosis, rather than through faith and strict obedience. What these controlling church leaders understood and feared most was that a practice like the monad call renders the entire institutional structure obsolete. If every individual can access the divine directly, without a need for priests, without complicated ritual, without the mediation of the church, then what legitimate power does the institution hold? But here is where the monad call becomes even more profound. It isn't just about personal spiritual liberation. It carries massive cosmological implications. According to the Gnostic worldview, every single time a divine spark awakens and consciously returns its awareness toward the pleroma, the collective power of the Archons measurably diminishes. They are revealed as parasites who have grown obese on the stolen light of humanity. As more souls remember their true, sovereign nature and exit the system's control, the archonic realm begins its inevitable collapse. The entire material prison only continues to exist because enough consciousness remains trapped within it, believing the illusion of separation. This explains why Jesus' true mission, according to these revolutionary texts, was so genuinely revolutionary. He wasn't simply offering a new religion or a slightly better set of moral rules. He was initiating a mass spiritual awakening, teaching people how to perform what we are calling the monad call, to remember, to recognize, to return. The crucifixion itself takes on a new, allegorical meaning in this context. The Gospel of Judas, another Nag Hammadi text, suggests that Jesus' death was not a sacrificial appeasement to an angry God, but a powerful demonstration that consciousness utterly transcends the physical body. Even death, the ultimate tool of archonic control, holds no genuine power over one who knows their true, eternal nature. Now, you might rationally wonder, if the monad call is so incredibly powerful, why isn't everyone doing it? Why has it remained so thoroughly hidden? The answer lies in the chilling sophistication of the control system. The Archons do not just operate through obvious evil or overt oppression. They are absolute masters of counterfeit spirituality. They have cleverly engineered spiritual traditions that feel profound, that offer genuine, temporary experiences of transcendence, but that ultimately keep you circling endlessly within their domain. They have learned to satisfy humanity's profound hunger for meaning just enough that you cease searching for the real, truly nourishing source. Even more cunningly, they have installed what can only be called spiritual gatekeepers. These are specific thoughts and beliefs that trigger immediately whenever you approach genuine liberation. Have you ever noticed that when you contemplate your own innate divinity, a shaming voice instantly appears saying, "That's blasphemy," or "That's arrogant," or "Who do you think you are?" That is not your authentic voice. That is an archonic implant, a specific thought form designed to keep you small and compliant. The monad call directly confronts these gatekeepers and systematically dissolves them by asserting a higher, factual reality. There is also a crucial, practical distinction to understand between the monad and the demiurge. Many people, when they pray traditionally, are actually connecting with Yaldabaoth, the false god who demands worship, who punishes and rewards, who is jealous and wrathful. The Old Testament God, with his numerous commandments and his penchant for vengeance, bears all the exact characteristics the Gnostics attributed to the demiurge. He famously declares, "I am the Lord thy God. Thou shalt have no other gods before me." The exact, blind claim Yaldabaoth makes in the Gnostic texts, ignorant of the true divine realm above him. The monad, by contrast, never demands anything. The monad doesn't need your worship because the monad is you. It would be akin to your hand worshipping your brain. The relationship fundamentally doesn't work that way because they are intrinsically part of the same system. When you perform the monad call, you are not reaching up to a separate, external entity. You are reaching simultaneously inward and upward to the unified field of consciousness from which you have never truly been separated. This understanding transforms everything. It means that every moment you felt the presence of something greater, every mystical experience, every flash of cosmic insight, these were not gifts arbitrarily bestowed by an external god. They were moments when the illusory veil thinned, and you vividly glimpsed your own magnificent true nature. The kingdom of heaven is not somewhere you must go. It is something you remember you have always been. Now, we arrive at the most crucial, actionable question. How do you actually perform the monad call? How do you translate this challenging, ancient wisdom into a living, daily practice that profoundly transforms your experience of reality? This is the stage where the theoretical becomes tangible, where hidden knowledge becomes embodied spiritual power. What I am about to share with you is a synthesis derived from the surviving Gnostic texts, combined with subtle, energetic techniques that have been preserved in protected esoteric lineages for 2 millennia. The first step is preparation, not of your external environment, but of your internal consciousness. The monad call cannot be performed effectively from the ordinary shallow mind, the mind that has been thoroughly conditioned by the archonic system of duality and limitation. You must first intentionally create what the mystics call sacred space within yourself. Find a quiet location where you know you will remain undisturbed. Sit comfortably, with your spine naturally straight and your hands resting gently in your lap. Close your eyes. But here is the critical difference from traditional prayer. You are not preparing to speak to someone else. You are preparing to actively remember who you are. Begin with the breath, but not in the mechanical way you might expect. The Gnostics understood breath as pneuma, the same term used for spirit. Each breath is fundamentally the monad breathing itself through your form. Breathe deeply and consciously, and with each slow inhalation, silently acknowledge. Asterisk, this is the breath of the monad. Asterisk, with each exhalation. Asterisk, this is the monad releasing itself. Asterisk, continue this rhythm for several minutes until you feel a definitive shift, a subtle opening, an expansive sense of possibility. You are diligently tuning the radio, adjusting your internal frequency away from the limiting material station. Now comes the crucial element that defines the monad call and distinguishes it from conventional prayer. The shift in position. In traditional prayer, you speak from the small self, the ego, the personality that is tragically convinced of its separation. In the monad call, you speak only from the divine spark within, the fragment of the monad that has always been present, patiently waiting to be acknowledged and activated. This is not mere pretending or a technique of forced positive thinking. This is accessing a deeper, truthful stratum of your being that exists completely beneath the accumulated layers of conditioning. Place your awareness directly in the center of your chest, in the heart space. The Gnostics taught that the divine spark resides here, momentarily imprisoned in dense matter but never, ever extinguished. Feel into this space. Imagine, or, better yet, simply know that there is a point of light there. Tiny, perhaps, but infinitely bright and unyielding. This is not just a metaphor. This is the pearl of great price, the mustard seed that contains the entire kingdom, the divine fragment that constitutes your actual, true essence. From this place of inner, blazing light, you are now going to make a declaration, not a request, not a prayer, but a sacred statement of recognition, a declaration of innate being. The specific phrasing is secondary to the profound consciousness from which these words are launched. Yet, to anchor this powerful realization, here is a traditional formulation, carefully preserved and drawn from the ancient Nag Hammadi texts, the voice of pure gnosis. I am the light that illuminates all things. I am the all. The all came forth from me and the all extends to me. I and the monad are one. There is no separation. There has never been separation. You must speak these words, aloud or in the deepest silence of your heart, not as a yearning or a desired outcome, but as an existing, immutable truth. This distinction is the critical juncture. You are not whispering, I want to be the light, or I hope one day to achieve union with the monad. You are declaring what has always been the fundamental underlying reality of your existence, and what can never, under any circumstance, cease to be. Feel the profound, resonant truth of these sounds in your physical structure. Allow them to vibrate through every molecule, every hidden recess of your being. When you inhabit this frequency, the Archons are rendered powerless. They cannot perceive you because you have shifted your entire energetic signature to a bandwidth that is simply outside the limitations of their reality matrix. As you sustain this declaration, you will inevitably encounter resistance. The Archonic defense mechanism is robust and highly programmed. That familiar voice of the inner saboteur will rise up. It will whisper, "This is ridiculous. This is sheer arrogance. This is blasphemy. Who are you, a limited, flawed human, to claim divinity?" When this happens, you must instantly recognize it for what it is. Not your own deepest wisdom, but a projected firewall designed to maintain the illusion of separation. Do not engage in a battle with it. Do not argue. Simply observe the resistance as external noise and immediately return to your sovereign declaration. Each time you consciously choose remembrance over doubt, you weaken the Archonic gatekeeper program, dissolving its power structure, and exponentially strengthen your unbreakable connection to the monad. Now, let us turn to an advanced technique, a catalyst that amplifies the monad call exponentially. The Gnostics spoke reverently of the bridal chamber, the mystical, sacred union of the fragmented, earthly self with its perfect, divine counterpart. In practical application, this means consciously achieving an alchemical unification of all the perceived dualities within your current experience. As you settle into the undeniable awareness of your divine, boundless nature, begin the process of collapsing all the oppositions that the Archons depend on. I am both light and dark. I am both creator and created. I am both nothing and everything. I am both silence and sound. I am both observer and observed. Hold these profound paradoxes in your consciousness simultaneously, allowing them to intermingle without any attempt to logically resolve them. This is the very essence of the dissolution of duality, the realization Jesus pointed to in the Gospel of Thomas when he spoke of making the two into one. You will know the monad call is fully resonating when you experience what is often described as a click. It is not a thought, but a palpable, sudden, seismic shift where some fundamental piece of cosmic synchronicity locks firmly into place. Time may cease its linear passage. The rigid boundary separating your inner world from the outer universe may blur into a unified field. You might feel a profound, overwhelming sense of coming home, a sudden recollection of something you have always inherently known but had been forced to forget. Some initiates experience powerful waves of pure energy surging through the body. Others feel an overwhelming, oceanic sense of profound peace or absolute, unconditional love. Whatever sensations arise, do not grasp at them or try to hold them captive. Simply observe and allow the experience to be. Practice this daily, even if you can only commit 10 minutes. Consistency, the steady return to truth, matters infinitely more than the duration of the session. Each time you perform the monad call, you are literally rewiring the architecture of your consciousness, forging new neural pathways that entirely bypass the archonic programming and conditionings. You are training your being to access this sovereign state more quickly, more easily, and with less friction. Eventually, you will be able to perform the monad call seamlessly in the midst of daily life, while walking, while working, or while navigating complex interactions. Here is a powerful, integrative method for transforming your everyday experience. Whenever you recognize yourself about to slip into traditional prayer, asking for something you lack, seeking external intervention, or expressing paralyzing worry, pause immediately. Redirect that impulse. Pivot from the supplicant stance into the declaration of the monad call. Instead of the needy petition, "Please God, help me solve this crisis," shift your internal decree to, "I am the divine consciousness that utterly transcends this problem. I am the monad experiencing itself through this situation. There is no separation between me and the solution, because I am the all." This single, radical shift will utterly transform your entire relationship with challenges and perceived difficulties. One common psychological obstacle that people encounter is the fear that they are being arrogant or slipping into delusion. Allow me to address this vital distinction directly. The ego-claiming divinity is, indeed, a deep delusion. It is the limited self attempting to inflate itself. But the divine spark within you recognizing its true, eternal nature is simply truth, an empirical ontological fact. The difference resides entirely in the quality of consciousness driving the action. The ego seeks divinity to feel superior, special, or powerful over others. The divine spark recognizes divinity within itself and simultaneously recognizes it within all other beings, the highest and the lowest, without distinction. If your monad call generates even a fleeting sense of superiority or feeling better than anyone else, you are still operating from the programming of the ego. True gnosis immediately dissolves all such artificial separations. Another practical tip: maintain a journal detailing your experiences with the monad call. This is not for intellectual analysis, but rather to track your evolutionary process empirically. You will begin to notice discernible patterns. Certain times of day when the connection is effortlessly stronger. Specific life situations that reliably trigger archonic interference. And, most importantly, moments when the veil of illusion completely and unexpectedly dissolves. This journal becomes a detailed map of your own consciousness, helping you navigate back to the monad efficiently. Finally, you must understand that the monad call is not a single milestone or a one-time event. It is an ongoing, continuous practice of remembrance. The archonic forces are tirelessly working to pull your awareness back into the illusion of separation. Every piece of manipulative media, every fear-mongering news broadcast, every social interaction conditioned by lack, judgment, or fear. These are all invitations to forget your true nature. The monad call is your spiritual anchor, your unwavering lifeline, your continuous way of choosing verifiable reality over persistent illusion. We have journeyed together through 2,000 years of hidden history, through forbidden texts and systematically suppressed wisdom, to arrive at a truth so simple and yet so fundamentally revolutionary that entire controlling empires were constructed precisely to keep it hidden from you. You are not, and have never been, separate from the divine source. The separation is the lie, the foundational falsehood upon which the archonic system is built. The monad call is simply the remembrance, the conscious recalling of what has always been fact. Ponder deeply what this revelation signifies for your life right now, in this very moment. Every conventional prayer you have ever whispered into the void, every desperate plea for help that seemed to go unanswered, every agonizing moment you felt abandoned by a distant God. All of it was based upon a fundamentally false premise. You were never speaking to something outside yourself. The divine entity you sought has been steadily breathing through your lungs, seeing through your eyes, living, experiencing, and abiding as you this entire time. The Archons constructed an elaborate, labyrinthine maze to keep you desperately searching everywhere except the one, single place where the truth actually resides, within the sanctuary of your own consciousness. The monad call is your profound exodus from this self-imposed prison. This has nothing to do with religion, dogma, or belief systems. It is not about identifying as Christian or Gnostic or anything else. It is purely about direct, empirical experience, about gnosis, about knowing rather than merely believing. When you perform the monad call and feel that undeniable shift in consciousness, when the false boundaries dissolve and you touch that infinite field of awareness that is your true nature, no external force can ever take that realization from you. No priest, no institution, no political authority can mediate your relationship with the source, because you have discovered there is no relationship to mediate. There is only identity. You and the monad are one. This radical truth is why they buried the Nag Hammadi texts in the deep desert. This is why the Gnostic communities were ruthlessly and systematically destroyed. This is why 2,000 years of religious conditioning has trained you exclusively to look outside yourself for redemption and salvation. The moment you truly discover this truth, the moment you master the monad call as a daily practice, you become spiritually sovereign. You step entirely out of the harvest field. You cease feeding the Archons with the energy of your fear, your misplaced worship, and your pervasive sense of unworthiness. And when their energy source is cut off, their entire system of control begins its inevitable, irreversible crumble. But here is the final, essential understanding I want you to grasp as we conclude. This knowledge is utterly meaningless if it remains merely theoretical. The Archons do not fear people who know about the monad call. They fear the people who practice it relentlessly. Every single day that you choose remembrance over forgetfulness, recognition over external prayer, and divine identity over programmed separation, you strike a definitive blow against the system of control that has held human consciousness enslaved for millennia. You become a living, breathing demonstration that another way, the true way, is possible. Therefore, I ask you to commit to an action right now. Do not procrastinate. Do not intellectually analyze it. Do not tell yourself you will try it later when you have more time or feel more ready. Close your eyes for just 60 seconds after this presentation ends. Place your hand gently upon your heart. Feel that irreducible point of light residing within your core, and speak these words with absolute, unwavering conviction. I am the monad. The all came forth from me and returns to me. There is no separation. Feel what happens in that moment. Notice what subtle but powerful shift occurs within your being. This realization is your cosmic birthright. This is your inherent power. This is the profound teaching that Jesus truly offered before the ruling powers rewrote the narrative. The ancient Gnostics understood a fundamental reality that we are only now, collectively, beginning to recall. The apocalypse, which literally translates as the unveiling, is not a catastrophic end of the world. It is the end of the illusion. It is the threshold moment when enough sovereign individuals wake up, when enough divine sparks remember their true nature, causing the entire archonic system to dissolve from a lack of sustaining energy. Every single time someone performs the monad call with sincere conviction, we move measurably closer to that threshold. You did not find this information by accident. The sheer fact that you discovered this message, that you watched until this very moment, that these words are resonating deeply in your consciousness right now, this is the monad calling to itself. It is the divine spark within your heart recognizing the divine spark speaking through me. We are fragments of the same singular, infinite consciousness, temporarily experiencing separation so that the one can truly know itself through the experience of the many. The path forward is transparently clear. Practice the monad call daily. Forge it into your anchor in a world deliberately engineered to keep you deeply asleep. When fear arises, when insidious doubt whispers, when the archonic voices try to convince you that you are small, powerless, and unworthy, return instantly to the remembrance. Return to the recognition. Return to the self-evident truth that transcends all the lies. I am the monad. And so are you. And so is everyone and everything, whether they remember it yet or not. This is the secret that changes everything. This is the inner practice Jesus taught in the hidden hours, away from the crowds, to those disciples who were ready to truly hear it. This is your inheritance, your ultimate power, your way home. The Archons despise this practice because they cannot survive its frequency. And that is exactly why you must practice it diligently. Go now and remember who you fundamentally are. The monad is calling you home, not to some distant, ethereal heaven, but to the kingdom that has always existed perfectly within you, waiting patiently for this precise moment of recognition. And when you arrive, you will realize, perhaps with a laugh or a tear, or a profound, encompassing silence, that you never actually left. You only dreamed that you did. The dream is ending. The awakening has begun. Welcome home.